Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, Jessica Ray.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome to MotorWeek podcast number 323. I'm Jessica Ray, producer of this podcast, and this week I'm also the host. The man, the myth, the legend, John Davis, is currently enjoying himself on vacation, but the car news stops for no one. On today's podcast, we're talking about the reveals from the 2024 New York International Auto Show. It's not a huge list of new vehicles, but there are quite a few models to report on. Like Genesis, who has some interesting new concepts that certainly look production ready, while Infiniti and Nissan take familiar but quite opposite nameplates into their next generation. Hyundai gives two of their models a tasteful refresh, while Kia brings out an all-new model to replace the compact Forte sedan, and the North American debut of the all-electric Polestar 4 crossover that will eventually be built here in the U.S., but won't have a rear window? We'll talk about that.
Wow. Oh, man, you have me. I'm interested.
Is this the MotorWeek podcast or the podcast of MotorWeek? I'm confused.
It's both.
Okay.
It's all.
All right.
Now, joining me today are two-wheeling reporter and MotorWeek wordsmith, Brian Robinson.
Ooh, wordsmith.
Over the
Okay.
Edge reporter, but truly a jack of all trades, Greg Carlos.
My interest is piqued by that last question.
And writer and one of the Alexes of all time,
Yes.
Alex Kellum.
Howdy.
But first, before we get started, did you know that you can watch MotorWeek and other PBS programming anytime, anywhere with the free PBS app? Download the app now on your smart TV, and you'll never miss a mile of MotorWeek. All right, let's get into it. The 2024 New York International Auto Show. Now, we don't see too many concept vehicles these days, but Genesis loves to bring out a few ahead of the show. And these concepts are often very reflective of what we're going to see coming to production very soon. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Genesis Neoloon concept. So it's kind of, it's a two-row that we see, but it kind of looks bigger than what we would see like a GV80. So thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a big SUV with like a wide open floor plan, which we've seen on concept cars for years, right? Mm-hmm. You got to have a big open floor plan with swiveling seats and a weird shaped steering wheel. That's how you make a concept. Yeah, right. So this has that, but we're to the point where all that stuff's realistic now with EVs, right? And then also people are sitting at EV charging stations, so we're seeing like seats that recline and swivel more. That's much more realistic now. So I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of took out of it was it has a radiant heat system where like it all comes from the floor instead of like through vents. It's something kind of cool. Like that kind of stuff gets lost when concepts come out, especially one like so striking, so like forward thinking. This isn't like a concept like they're the ones we'll talk about soon that are like basically ready for production. I mean, this is very obviously, as Robinson said, like a futuristic concept. But yeah, like one of those, like believe it or not, they actually put like details and they give out specs of like things that this car would have, and one of them was like a radiant heat system, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right, but
see if it actually like makes it through.
Well, that's the thing. If it never actually gets produced, you can say it has anything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You got like
it had what do they call it, like heat film that it put on the surfaces of the car. But it actually it kind of makes sense here because like if this were to be an EV, the battery's in the floor. The floor gets hot because of the battery. So naturally, you would use that heat to heat the rest of the car. So, my bold prediction was maybe we see that in 10 years.
Yeah, it has a self-described reductive design, which I think is the fancy way of saying minimalist, which is we kind of know.
Reductive sounds like a weird word to use when design. Like
Range Rover's been using that. I think so. They're just picking up on that.
It almost sounds like self-deprecating.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Well, pulling one out of my
design is
playbook. Yeah, but you look at the front, it's very clearly got the Genesis look with the LED lighting elements, but everything else, very flush, very simple lines.
I mean, it definitely looks like a preview of what like next generation SUVs could look like from them.
I think it has like screens that can come down from the headliner too. Like I think that's like for the rear passengers.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It's definitely a good-looking concept, very luxurious on the inside.
Do you think people are as interested in concepts anymore? Like 15, 20, 30 years ago, you see a concept and you're like, wow, man,
Well,
like that's the
maybe-
future. Now, like we are in, like, I can
We are
say
in the
we are
future.
definitively in the future. Like, does this wow anybody anymore?
Well, I think maybe the case can be made for Genesis because last year at the auto show we had the GV80 Coupe concept,
yes.
and then that is now reality. So maybe depending on the concept, it can excite people if it looks production ready enough. Another great
Yeah.
example was the new Charger. I mean, when they put out that Daytona SRT concept, I mean, what we ended up getting is almost spot on to that. So maybe if there is a trend of these concepts being more like their production ready versions, if those production ready versions ever come out, people might be excited in them again.
That's a good point, because you know what vehicle that I think a lot of people were really hoping was going to make it to production was that Chrysler Airflow. Remember that? Like it, I don't know. Well, but it was like one of the best looking things that like Chrysler had made in a while, and you're like, okay, wow, does this preview like the future that we're going to see from Chrysler? And then it basically fizzled out to nothing.
Then you see things like the Halcyon concept, though, and which they just put
Yeah.
out like 2 months ago, and it's like it's cool, it's really cool, but what is like realistically
It's
what
not
are the
gonna be
odds that is this going to be made? Like how
Right.
close is this going to be to what eventually gets called the Halcyon?
And I think the Airflow was a success in that it never was made, and we can still say how cool it was.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas, like, then the Prowler comes out, and we're like, what? An automatic V6? Like, why do I want this? So
That's a good point. Good point. Well, they did have another concept, the GV60 Magma concept, which that one, like Greg had mentioned, is definitely closer to production and actually introduces Magma to the Genesis lineup, which is going to be their high performance variants. That's going to go, that they say is they aim to be on every single production vehicle that they have in their lineup.
yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
You took my yeah from me?
Oh, sorry, man.
No, this is the natural progression of a luxury brand, adding a performance sub-brand or variant, whatever you want to call it. BMW has them, Mercedes has had them. Like, everybody has one, so, I mean, Genesis is maturing.
It's so
their
reductive
turn.
now.
It's so reductive.
It's so productive.
It is, like, I will say they are missing an opportunity if when they are marketing these Magmas that they don't use Dr. Evil's Magma.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be included in the marketing, right?
They didn't give a whole lot of details as far as powertrains, but other than saying that like their total performance package is not just more power, but I imagine they'll be painted orange.
They call it like quote, ample power.
Yeah,
They are
but I
saying
mean, if the GV60 SUV, which is the same as our Kia EV6 GT, so like imagine that painted orange with 100 more horsepower and some more rubber. I mean, that's going to be sick.
Hey, they keep them orange. They got me signed up.
Yeah,
That's
Alex is a
all that
big
matters.
orange guy.
Yeah.
I bet you it, for our purposes, will film weird. I think that's a color that the cameras will kind of like shoot differently. Like it won't come across. If we use multiple cameras, we'll have multiple
Different color orange.
colors. Yeah.
We should put a disclaimer up there.
Yeah.
We're doing our best.
I mean, they gave a little bit of information on this GV60 that they have specifically, because this is going to be pretty close to production. I mean, it's got like 21-inch wheels with aero discs. It's got like a large air intake in the front, specifically for cooling. I mean, I think it just looks really cool. I mean, Alex, what do you think?
Lots of fins, canards, wings, everything you want. I did not see an interior picture,
No.
but they described it. It's very similar to the GV80 Coupe concept from last year, where like the seat backs, they're hard shell and they're painted, which looks great. I don't know if it has like all the roll bars and struts inside of it, but or the strut bracing, I should say, but. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks great, and I'm not just saying that because of the color. I think it does look great, but without too many powertrain details, what can you really say performance-wise?
But it certainly looks cool.
It does, and that's half the battle.
Well, moving on, the luxury full-size SUV game is pretty competitive, and Infiniti unveiled a revamped QX80. It doesn't look awfully different. But there are some pretty major differences, and I think there's a couple details in there that's going to set it apart in a very, very competitive segment. I know specifically, like under the hood, we have a new engine.
Oh, I was gonna.
Yeah.
You can go first on this one, Alex.
No, I was going to talk about the cool box. You said features,
sorry. Yeah,
which
no.
cool box is not just the way to describe the QX80 itself, but there is an available feature that redirects the that I'm going to ride that high for the week. But yeah, no, it redirects cooled or chilled AC into like a compartment. So if you have probably shouldn't say six-pack, but that's what comes to mind. You got something in there.
Of soda.
Yeah,
Of
soda. That's
Coca-Cola.
exactly what it is, and nothing else. But you put that in there, it keeps it chill, which I think is really cool. They're really trying to play to that upscale here. There's like you can get a speaker system that has it in the headrests, which
Yeah.
I know we've seen that before.
Yeah.
But
like, with that one, you can like change it so like
Yeah.
the passenger is listening to something different than you are.
And they also say, like, if your rear passengers are, let's say, napping or just, they're in their own little world, you can take phone calls and things through this speaker so as to not disturb your passengers, which I think is really cool. But yeah, their new engine and all that stuff too. I guess we should talk about that too, right?
Yeah, we have a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, which is not unfamiliar across the Nissan Infiniti lineup. 450 horsepower,
That would be
50
insane.
more than the outgoing V8, and 516 pound-feet of torque. So pretty ample power.
I believe rear-wheel drive standard, but on the higher-up trims, four-wheel drive is the only way to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the whole HVAC theme. So they have, like biometric cooling.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw that.
Where it monitors your second row passengers, like
Right.
their body temperature, or I guess ambient temperature of the back seat, and then it makes decisions on like how can we cool them down. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
We are certainly
But
going back.
I know what you're going to say, Robinson.
Oh, what's
you
that?
like to cool yourself down. Like you wouldn't allow a computer to.
I just
determine
never-
how hot or cool
I just
you-
never get hot, so it's all right. No, the QX80 definitely needed an update. I'm not sure this was it. It definitely looks impressive. Everyone tries to outdo themselves with like the LED lighting game now. It's got super slim LED headlights and then projects all kind of things on the ground for you, whatever.
Got that like bar and the LED like tail light bar in the back.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Hopefully, it drives better, right? Because it looks fantastic, but it doesn't drive like a $100,000 SUV.
And that's an important point. Is the
Well, to some
pricing.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point.
The QX the 80 has like a kind of a cult following. Like you see,
Yes, it does.
a
It
fair
does.
amount of them, and people who drive them swear by them. So like to Robinson's point, like it is an update. I think it will keep the QX80 buyers buying QX80s. But like, does it pull anybody away?
Right? Is it going to
from-
convert?
Well, I mean,
brand?
what's really interesting about this, two features that I'll mention that are specific to this that we haven't seen in comparable full-size SUV, luxury SUVs, is that you do have an available heated and ventilated third row. Nobody's
Dude,
done
that. To me is like whatever.
And you also have second row massaging seats.
Nobody goes in the third row.
So I guess for people who, I don't know, have 3 children that want to spread out and want that heated and ventilated in the third row, that does set it apart. I can see an Infiniti dealer being like, can you believe this is the only one? That does set it apart. But you're right, Greg, this vehicle does have a cult following along with the Armada. I mean, obviously they're kins, they share platforms, but this vehicle does have a lot of love to it, so it's really interesting. And Alex, can you mention the pricing?
Yeah, so it starts at 84 grand. That's for the base trim, the pure, and then if you add four-wheel drive to that, it's like 87-ish K. Going up to the Lux, 91 and 94 respectively, and then the last two trims, those are four-wheel drive only. The Sensory, it ticks over that six-figure mark. We're at $102,000, and then if you want the autograph, which I don't think comes with any important person's autograph, it's just the name of the trim, it's $112,000. So,
I mean, it's in the same vein as like where the top line Grand Wagoneers are, where the Escalade tops out. So, I mean, pricing wise, it's not out of this world, but gosh,
It's
that's a
up
lot
there.
of money. That's a lot of money. Well, let's move on to something quite literally the opposite and much cheaper. Cheap cars are hard to come by, but Nissan still offers entry-level vehicles for those who want them. Their subcompact Kicks model saw a facelift in 2020, but it's been due for a second generation, and we're finally getting one this year. So, the 2025 Nissan Kicks. What do we think? on like base level.
Well, it's ironic they go with the whole sneaker styling theme and talk about unboxing it, but it looks boxier than before. So
Right.
that's my wordsmithing that I'm somewhat known for. Not sure why, but it definitely looks more SUV-ish than before, and you can get all-wheel drive now, which you couldn't before. So that's good.
That's true.
More power too. You get a standard 2-liter inline 4. I think that ups power, not tremendously so, but up to 141 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque. We kind of mentioned in our previous or our most recent road test of it that, it was not a dog, but it took a while to kind of get up there. So maybe the all-wheel drive with this more potent powertrain will help kind of, maybe we'll get more of a kicks out of it. That is my wordsmithing, by the way.
It is the same.
I'm sorry.
It is the same powertrain that we see in the Sentra. So before it had the 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine in it, so it was much smaller. But the interior definitely looks way nicer. I mean, what we see from the photos and the model that they brought out the SR model, which is going to be their range topping model, of course. But even, the interior looks much better. I mean, more developed.
Did they kicks it up a notch?
They definitely kicked it up a
I just
notch.
wanted to get in on it.
Yeah.
You guys are having too much fun on that side of the table. I enjoyed the previous kicks. I know, like, it's one of those models that doesn't get a ton of love. I just recall, I can't remember specific details. I just remember coming away being like, I like the kicks. And I think I kind of like played into that whole like fun factor. And I also one time saw somebody with a vanity plate that said "pumped up" on it. That's awesome.
That's
Really
good.
clever. Well, probably one of the more clever vanity plates I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think when we look at like the inside, well, just the overall design, it's a little bit bigger than the outgoing model naturally. But Nissan is saying that there is an additional inch of second row legroom, which in this subcompact class is pretty important, just because typically
I know that with car seats and stuff, man.
Greg with
I'll
car
take
seats.
every inch I can get. But I think the all-wheel drive, like Robinson said, is probably the biggest factor because people in that segment generally want all-wheel drive.
Yeah, when you're going up against things like the Crosstrek that come with standard all-wheel drive. Yeah.
And you can even get a two-tone color on this. I think on the SR, they have like a body color, and then the body color is silver and the roof is red. So definitely more attractive than the outgoing generation. We don't have any pricing details on it just yet, but it should be arriving in the second half of 2024.
Take the current one, add 10%, and I'm sure you'll be close.
Yeah, so we're probably eyeing. Hopefully, we'll be underneath. It'll definitely be underneath $25,000. Hopefully, but yeah, great. Now, before we move on. And before we finish what is new at the 2024 New York International Auto Show, I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast and of the show, MotorWeek, Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, and TireRack.com. We know our viewers and listeners appreciate your dedication to MotorWeek. Now, moving on, Kia has been strategically rebranding a number of their models. First with the Sedona minivan that became the Carnival, then the Optima sedan.
Whoa, the Carnival is not a minivan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was not a
I will tell
rebranding.
you.
My
They are
bad.
not in the minivan business. They
an
only make
MPV.
multi-purpose vehicles.
Sorry, my apologies. The
Go ahead.
Sedona minivan becoming the Carnival MPV. It actually no longer is a minivan. And the Optima sedan became the K5. And now they're doing it again. Say goodbye to the Kia Forte and hello to their new compact sedan, the K4, which they unveiled at they teased like a week ago, and then they have officially unveiled all of the specs here at the auto show. What do we think?
Someone else can go first. I want first list.
Alex?
Oh, yikes. Wow, putting me on the spot. It definitely looks better, and I think it falls in line with Kia's design language.
It doesn't look like a baby K5, though.
Right, it's a little different, especially at the lower front of the fascia. Or at least to me, that's where it really starts to kind of stand out a little bit more. We're getting the 2-liter standard inline four, of course. 147 horsepower or so. But you can get a turbo, a GT, or it's a GT line model. So you get a little more oomph in there. It's 190 horsepower coming out of a 1.6 liter turbo, of course, naturally in the name. So you'll have a little bit there. And I believe the turbo and the non-turbo versions of that GT line, they get a multi-link rear suspension. So they do actually change the suspension setup a little bit more there. So if you are into that more spirited driving, these may be the trims you want to look at. Of course, they'll be at the upper echelons of pricing, which I don't think we have yet, by the way. So
Yeah, it's similar to the K5 in that it's more that coupe-like style. It looks great. I think maybe this is one segment that Kia is just not absolutely killing it in right now. So this will probably change all that because it's got the same formula. Everything else is going with looking fantastic and a ton of features for not a lot of price.
My first and only thought on this car was that the headlight design, if you notice, like I guess it's in line with other Kias. But it almost looks identical to a Lamborghini Huracan Technica.
Oh, really?
The way it's like all sideways wide, and it cuts.
Yeah.
If as long as you're not driving, you guys should, if you're listening, go to Google and look up these two headlights.
Or if you're driving, just do it carefully.
Or maybe if you're charging using a reclining seat and some sort of spa function.
I mean, it's...
See what I mean there? So Jess just pulled it up on her fancy iPad here.
Yeah, if you want to look at it.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
I love the amber lights that they do on... Well, they had it on the K5, and now they have it here on the K4.
Telluride started that.
And the Telluride has it. Because when you see it coming by, it's like the first thing that you see. It really catches your eye, and I think it looks really unique and futuristic. But I do wonder, I mean... We have two gas-powered engines. We don't have any hybrid options here, which I guess might not be super surprising considering the K5 also doesn't have a hybrid option. But, I mean, does this mean that this K4 you think is going more like the sporty route for a compact sedan?
I mean, Kia is trying to set themselves up as a sportier choice between them and Hyundai. I'm not sure it's like overboard in that regard. They could possibly have a hybrid in the near future, though. They have that 1.6 liter hybrid, so I could see it making its way in there at some point.
I think one of the more controversial aspects of this vehicle is the C-pillar and how the coupe design kind of comes back on the rear right here. This part, that's probably been like online one of the most controversial aspects of it because it sort of just like cuts off a little bit. I don't really even know how to explain it.
Let me
all
see
that
a larger
well.
photo of
Here,
it
there you go.
again.
Yeah, I'm to Greg's point with the Y themed, which Lamborghini I guess doesn't have trademarked, but I'm gonna buy one and put some Lamborghini badges on it.
Oh, nice.
And then cause
I
all
think it would
kind
be cool.
It does have the hidden door handles in the rear, which is nice. They're kind of integrated into the
top of the
It's kind of like the roof line comes back, the rear quarter comes up, the rear window, of course, is there, and then you have the rear quarter window that comes up, and it creates this perfect, almost like I don't know how to describe it really. I'm doing a terrible job.
It's very geometric, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
And it's like a reverse. It's like a backslash or forward slash instead of a backslash, I think a lot of designers for years went out of their way to avoid doing, but now it seems to be maybe a trend.
Yeah, I guess I'll be interested to see if there's a functionality aspect that we miss because of the way that design is. And I think I'm going to reserve our full comment until we actually get to drive one. But definitely a good update for the compact sedan that Kia offers, and in a segment that still exists and that people still want to buy. Now moving on to their cousins, Hyundai. Now, Hyundai brought out two models to debut at the New York Auto Show, the 2025 Tucson and Santa Cruz. They both see a mid-cycle refresh, but with a few things that buyers might be interested in. Let's start off with the Hyundai Tucson. I think if you put two of them, the updated one and the last one, next to each other, I think you would be really hard-pressed to find too many differences on the exterior, right, Alex?
The new one's got 2 less lights.
In the front?
So instead of 10, it's now been stepped down to 8.
Wow.
That is how you will tell.
Okay.
And there are a few other, like, you're kind of getting into the minutia a little bit.
Oh,
but,
good word.
Yes, a solid word,
Spell
man.
that for me?
No, I can't do that. But no, you're going to look at it. I imagine there will be a scenario where you go to the lot, or someone who's looking to buy one of these will see the 2025 and the 2024 Tucson like right next to each other, and yeah, you will be hard pressed to really tell. I think you see a little bit more of it in the interior is where
Absolutely,
you're going to notice.
yeah.
These are where the updates are. This is where it's going to matter which one you pick up.
Go ahead, tell us about those
Oh,
interior
it's going to be
updates.
me. I was,
You're leaving me hanging.
that was like passing it off
Yeah.
to somebody.
Over here.
Man, I was going to pass it off to somebody. That was a perfect segue. But yeah, you can get the, so we've seen it a lot in Hyundais, and I think Kia has a similar setup, but Hyundai calls it the dual panoramic display. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah,
So
the
that's,
Elantra had it, the one we just
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a
same
nice little
setup.
I think I
Yeah.
mentioned that, and something that's, I guess, not quite entry level, but close enough. You see something like that, that's like a wow factor.
It's
in
a
a
nice
car
step
of that
up.
level.
It's two 12.3-inch displays, so that's one for instrumentation and one for infotainment. They both look, I think to me, when I look at them, they're HD, they're nice. They don't have like choppy frame rate, which is something that I think sometimes we see on these larger displays.
That's my new band name, Choppy Frame Rate.
I'd come to see that.
But interior, definitely, they opened it up a little bit. It seemed the Tucson's actually their number one selling vehicle, which I guess makes sense.
It's a compact SUV.
Yeah.
It's their best-selling
But the
vehicle.
previous gen, I mean, it wasn't cramped in there, but it was just, even in light color trims, it was just kind of dark. I think they opened it up a little bit, made it a little more airy, at least in the pictures. I haven't been in it yet, but it looks more inviting.
Yeah,
How about that word?
it's a redesigned center stack. There's a new dashboard tray, and if it's a model that uses shift-by-wire, the gear selector has been moved to the column. So instead of having it down there,
I really
shift it.
like
the
that.
Ionic type.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like that they're moving them to the column because it just feels very natural, and then you free up so much space right underneath, like in the center console area. That if it's shift by wire, there's no mechanical connection, so there doesn't need to be anything there. So I think it's really great to optimize space.
How are the cup holders? Because I keep running into the problem now. My wife's water bottles keep getting bigger and bigger. So like we have a 4Runner TRD Pro, and every time she would pull it out, it would pull out the rubber insert.
Oh, yeah,
because it's
yeah.
so big. So
That happened to me the other day.
At some point, they're gonna I detest how big water bottles have gotten. Don't get me started.
Definitely first world problems.
But like at some point, you would think that these manufacturers are probably considering that in cup holder size in the next
for sure.
generation of vehicles.
Yeah, that's always in the press release somewhere, is how many cup holders and how big they are.
I think in the Tucson it has the ones that like have the bumps on them that retract when you put something.
Yeah,
larger
was it
in
the
there.
Elantra? Back to the Elantra, didn't that
Betcha,
have?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was the K8. No, shoot. It was the EV9 is what I'm thinking of. So same family.
Yeah, same family.
The ones they had like the door that kind of went in and out.
Yeah, so it's like a variable size.
Yeah.
And probably some things to also mention about the interior, that they added knobs and more buttons.
No.
Because
I'm
truth
a
be
fan of
told,
knobs
if
and
you
buttons.
both the Santa Cruz and the Tucson, they get the same interior. And the last time I was in either one of those, and you're like trying to mess around with like changing the temperature, or it was like a touch screen that looked like it could be haptic, but it wasn't haptic because there was no feedback to it. So that was actually probably one of my least favorite interiors that Hyundai was doing. So I'm pretty happy to see that they've got some more knobs. There's a volume knob now. There was not before. So yeah, some really
When are these
seems like good
manufacturers
interiors.
going to learn? Every time they take a knob away from us, we all start yelling, and then they bring it back. And
I've
then
almost gotten trained just to go for the steering wheel switch now for the volume.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
I've almost got me
but
trained
it's not
out.
satisfying, as you know. Like a good tune comes on, you want to crank it immediately. But using a steering wheel control does not give you the same effect.
It's true. It's true. Well, I briefly mentioned it before, but they also had a mid-cycle refresh for the Santa Cruz, which it's not a pickup truck; it's a sport activity vehicle.
With a
but
bed.
it's basically a Tucson with the bed on the back. and it does get no significant changes to the powertrain, but it does get a new trim level.
XRT? Mm-hmm. All right. And it looks a little more off-road. Not an off-road package per se, but more adventurous would be the word that they would probably use. Yeah.
I mean, it gets, they have front tow hooks now.
That's all you need, right?
And 18-inch wheels, all-terrain tires. So, yeah, you're right. It can go off the beaten path.
And it will tow more than a Maverick, just saying.
True. That's true. I don't tow with my Maverick, guys. There's no beef there. Yeah. But what is interesting, because there is no powertrain changes, so they didn't put a hybrid in there to compete with the Maverick. So really this XRT is probably the addition, kind of can compete with a Tremor of the Maverick. But otherwise, it's not like they really are aiming for Maverick sales at all.
No, I don't think they're trying to get any truck buyers. They're just looking for people that want a little more open cargo area than their Tucson.
People who have a Tucson were like, man, I really wish this had a bed.
Right. I could throw this mulch in there so much easier.
And it also debuted in an orange color, although that's debatable, right, Alex?
I think the press release says it's Canyon Red.
Yeah, it looked red to me.
But, go to Red Rock.
Those colors are hard to photograph.
Go to Red Rock Canyon, and they look pretty orange to me. So
that's definitely different than the Genesis orange. I mean, that's red.
I don't know.
There's no way Genesis would allow them to get even close to that magma color.
That's true.
Because it's hot.
It looks red because
it does look red. It's red because it's dark. We're looking at pictures now. Definitely look up these models that we're talking about, because we'd be interested in what you guys think, if it's orange or if it's red. Now,
we might have just started a whole nother social media.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We do like a social media.
I'm a psycho
poll.
killer because it looks red to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll tweet that out later today, and we'll see what the people think. So let's move on to the last vehicle that we're going to talk about today. It's a Polestar. And while Polestar was in the news lately because Volvo announced they're going to sell a majority of their stake that they had in the company, that isn't stopping them from debuting a new vehicle to the North American market. Meet the Polestar 4. This is the first time we're seeing it stateside, and it is certainly unique. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that it does not
I forgot about that.
Yeah, man.
It does not have a rear window.
Taking EV minimalism to the next level.
I mean, what do we think about that? There is literally no rear glass on this vehicle.
Well, it has a glass roof, so maybe they're compensating. They're thinking okay, if we make the whole roof glass, who needs a rear window? But, you're talking about that.
Yeah.
I've failed to research this enough. Yeah.
There's nothing back there.
Well, you got to be able to see out the back.
Well, okay, so there is a camera. We should mention that
it's not totally not you can see out the back, I would presume, right?
You can with a camera. You can see the camera. If you look at pictures online, you'll see the camera in the back. But that is the only way that you can get a view from directly behind you without looking at your side view mirrors. You have just a camera.
That don't seem right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess because there's people who I've talked to who don't even trust backup cameras. They just don't trust the visual feed that's coming through. So I'm not sure how well that goes over, but it is. I will say that aside, it's probably the best looking Polestar that they've come out with. And with the dual motor, I think 0 to 60 in sub 4 seconds, which is pretty darn cool. This you've thrown me for a loop here with this lack of back glass.
Yeah, I think 300 miles is the max range they're going for. Ironically enough, though, the 4 is in between the 2 and the 3 as far as pricing and size, which makes no sense to me. But I guess, I don't know. I guess 2.5 seemed weird, so they had to go 4. I don't know.
But also, they say it's like a utility, it's a crossover,
it's a coupe,
but it's not really.
It's a coupe crossover, yeah.
I mean, it kind of is looks like a Crown, it sounds to me.
To me, it's more Crosstrek vibes. It looks a little bit, at least from pictures. A little bit lifted, but all Volvos, I mean, kind of have that lifted. Polestars. Kind of have that lifted look to them. Kind of bulky in the wheel well area, and tires are typically kind of chunky.
Yeah, same setup. You can get like the performance pack as the two. Kind of same. You get the long range battery, short range battery, performance pack with the upgraded suspension. Should be pretty fun to drive for sure.
It has a pretty reasonable starting price too.
55, is that right?
Yeah, 56.3 I think is where it starts. So, I mean, that is pretty competitive, especially since Polestar is a little bit, more upscale, especially on the interiors and such. Alex, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I mean, I think the lack of rear window is interesting. I guess if you can't see the squatted Ram 1500 behind you with its high beams on tailgating you, then it's not there, right?
Well, less stress, right?
Yeah,
less
you got
stress.
mirrors and all that stuff too, though, so I guess that doesn't matter. No, I mean, I think it looks good. I think the pricing is okay. It would be great if we could see something a little bit cheaper. I mean, that's true about everything, so it's like, what's new? There are a variety of packages you can get with it. I think if you fully load it, so you go with the dual motor, the long range, the performance pack, like everything, it's like mid 70s, like 74 and some change, which is a bit to pay, but also that is a fully loaded Polestar. So that's, I think that's, all things considered, not too bad. For what it is.
Free delivery to your house. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
372 miles of range, I think I saw up to.
372, really?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
That much?
Unless I read wrong, it was on our own website.
Oh, okay.
So that's really an Alex problem if it didn't.
That might be.
I just thought I heard up to 300.
They revealed it a year ago, so I don't know if things have changed.
Okay, so I think it has. So
okay.
I think originally it was probably eyeing that, and that might have been the European estimates, which are
they were
always higher, much higher.
They were targeting 372 miles with the single motor, 350 with the dual.
Yeah,
so
we're
see.
looking at much closer to 300.
Yeah,
your results may vary.
I think EPA rated it, or has it been EPA rated?
I don't know.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe it's been EPA rated yet. But
yeah, but I mean, like our EV6 GT is rated at 206, and I'll charge it, and you'll see like 236 sometimes.
Yeah. Until you start driving.
Until you start driving. The temperature, that probably more so because we've been driving more EVs. I've really noticed the temperature's effect on range.
Yeah, it's huge. I was driving we have a Volvo XC40 recharge in right now, and I was heating it up because it was a little cool yesterday. And it started off at 270 miles of range, and like I drove, I don't know, just a couple miles, and then the car is telling me that it has 240 miles of range. I mean,
But there's a lot. If you actually own it and you have it plugged into your house, you can do the preheating to where it'll heat it while it's still plugged in. So then you leave it. It wouldn't have as big of an impact as what we do around here.
And we'll definitely start seeing better ranges, at least in our EV6 GT, once it starts getting a little bit warmer and we don't have to rely so much on climate controls.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty happy with that amount of range that it has. I've been able to do anything
I need to do.
Have
been able to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty much everything at the 2024 New York International Auto Show. Definitely some important models for quite a few brands, but certainly not a New York Auto Show of the past. But thanks, everybody. That was a really great discussion. I want to see if anybody has a rant or rave today.
I thought you had one in the holster the last couple of podcasts that we just haven't gotten to.
I don't think.
I've got one. I'm
you
ready.
Got one? Go then. Go
this
ahead.
This could be a rant or a rave. I'm not sure which. Has anybody noticed like more? Has anybody noticed more like please be patient student drivers?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like whether this is a rant or like the rave would be like awesome. More responsible drivers, younger drivers who are like, hey, look, I'm new. Maybe I might not be great at this. And I'm like, great, that's cool. Because it used to be a big thing, like in Maryland, the big rookie driver bumper sticker. I remember when I was younger.
Yep.
And then it kind of went away, and now I see it a lot. But this could be a rant because the cynic in me is like, I think maybe people just put this on there to excuse any crappy driving habits they have. So I'm just curious if anybody else has noticed this, because I'm also finding that they generally do have poor driving habits when they have the sticker on there.
Well, sometimes I'll pass by them and it's not the student driver.
Right,
It's
well,
the
that's-
parent.
that's
And,
where
and they're
the
driving
cynic
like
is.
garbage. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I
And then they
definitely
look at
have
you,
that
"Oh, I'm
thought.
a rookie driver. It's okay.
Well, just because they're older doesn't mean they're not a rookie driver.
Technically, that could be true.
People wait later and later in life to get their license.
That's true. And I do know that the age that people are getting their license, even like teenagers, is rising. Like,
And where
less
do
and
you
less
get
of
these
them.
things anymore? You used to get them from the DMV.
Right, when you got your learner's permit,
Yeah.
you would get that bumper sticker.
But they used to
I still
like,
have one up in my
again-
garage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Again, they used to be like a standard thing in Maryland. Now they kind of all look a little bit different. So I'm wondering if people, again, cynic in me is like, they're just getting them on Amazon and just slapping them on their cars.
You could get away with some bad things, similar to like we're almost always driving out-of-state tags
For
on our
sure.
cars.
Oh,
So
yeah,
yeah,
people-
you make it turn in at the last minute. You're like, sorry, I'm in California. I don't know.
I do think about that when I'm like driving around.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility for somebody
Yeah.
to buy a sticker and slap it on their car and be like, yeah, I'm a rookie.
I mean, you know what? Like, I think about that. It's like, man, that just sucks. Why would you willingly put a bumper sticker on your car because you're such a poor driver, or like you're just like such a lazy?
People do funny
Put that
things,
effort
man.
into being a better driver.
Right, exactly.
And then let's take it a step further. At what point, let's assume that this is a 17 or 18-year-old driver. At what point is it acceptable to take the bumper sticker off? Is it
I think it should be when
6 months? a
when your
year?
provisionals is gone.
I was just about to say that. Like you don't have to have that piece of paper anymore that says like, oh, I can drive past midnight or whatever. It's like, all right, the sticker comes off, the magnet comes off.
Yeah, that would be the socially acceptable one for me, because you can finally like drive other people around. Because if you're on your provisionals, you can only drive, your family members, and yeah, you have to be off the road by like 11 or 12 o'clock at
I
night.
think it should be more like a Boy Scout badge, like the opposite of a Boy Scout badge, where like you have to perform a task and then
Yeah.
it gets so ceremoniously taken off your car.
I mean, I guess
demerit
I'm
badge.
saying,
Not
like,
demerit, yeah, exactly.
ideally, like it should be when you like get your driver's license. You know what I mean? Like that's the task, but I guess not so much.
I mean, every now and then you see someone put it on like performance cars, like a bit, right? They put it on,
Guess
they get
so.
like a big one,
That
they
must
put it
be
on their
the bit.
wing. It's like, yeah, all right, it's funny, haha, whatever.
I will say one super handy bumper sticker I saw on a vehicle once was like they have like the baby on board ones, but this was like it was bigger, and I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was like baby in the car, something. And the person, I was like behind them at a stoplight and
Tailgating as usual.
as usual, and the light was green and they didn't go, but then I saw the baby on board and I was like, I'm not gonna honk, because what if that baby is sleeping?
That's the parents' problem, not your problem. Not that you should honk, but
I wouldn't stop. How long do you wait till you honk? I'm usually
guarantee
I'm usually like a strong 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
would
honk
agree.
at all. I just drive around.
Really?
Yeah,
But what if you
See,
can't?
that's dangerous, man. Like, what if they just took off?
they usually do. That was the whole point. Get them to go, right? It's like, whatever.
Have you? This is morphing into something else, but have you guys ever been sitting at a light or like a turn, and you're like
I just
in,
run lights now.
and you're in? One time I was in the right lane. It was actually right up here by MPT. I was sitting in the right lane. It's a red light. A guy wants to make a right, so instead of just waiting for me to go straight, he goes around me to the left and then in front
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
I've
And
not
makes the
experienced
right. That was the
you-
most insane thing I've ever
Yeah,
experienced.
it's a bold
Or
move.
the people that like they want to go straight, the light's red, so they get in the right lane, they turn right, they pull a U-turn on that street to get in the
Oh,
right
yeah.
lane, put on the blinker, go. It's like, all right, I mean,
Yes.
I get like I wouldn't do
Yes.
that, but you do you.
I actually
suppose.
hate to say that I have done that before. I'll be honest. I've done that before. Only
You don't have to
it was a
justify it,
light that I knew.
There's technically nothing.
Yeah,
There was nothing illegal about it.
It's
I
not.
guess you could say making a U-turn on the street would be illegal.
but
That
it
would
was
be the
but
illegal
if it
part.
was a dotted yellow, it wasn't a solid yellow. I don't think. Or I pulled into another thing. I pulled in somewhere to make a safe U-turn. I used to do that where I used to live because the traffic would get
now
so
she does it
backed
more than
up.
once. So
I don't do it
Story
anymore because I don't
changes.
live at that place. But I know exactly what you're talking about,
but you
Alex.
would if you did.
If I was familiar with the road.
All right. Let's just end this before
Yeah,
we
I think
incriminate ourselves
yeah.
anymore.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to our podcast today. If you're wondering what time MotorWeek can be seen on your local public television station, go to our website, motorweek.org/watch, and then enter your zip code for days and times in your area. Or hop on over to our cable partner, mavtv.com, for their schedule. And don't forget to download the free PBS app. All of our individual road tests and feature segments are available at youtube.com/MotorWeek. Basically, if you have a screen, you can watch MotorWeek. Thank you to Brian Robinson, Greg Carlos, and Alex Kellum for participating in this podcast. Our audio engineer today, David Wainwright, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and I'm Jessica Ray. Thank you for being a part of MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.